Yeah, yeah. Hey there, fellow citizens of the internet. Welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast. Today I have with me Linda King, and we're going to be talking about traveling and more specifically, how to do so cheaply. Linda, welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast.
Thank you, Moses. Lovely to be here.
Where are you calling from in Australia?
So I'm in Melbourne, Australia, and it's about 7:15 in the morning.
Oh, okay. That's quite a time difference. I'm in Honduras, and right now it is 2:15 p.m. So a little bit of a time difference there. Um, so give us a quick intro into, well, who you are and how did you end up into this whole traveling cheaply thing?
So I'm a travel writer, author, and travel blogger, founder of the Smart Travelista. So um, with the Smart Travelista, we combine travel and saving money. So how I came about creating this idea was I started traveling when I was a child. We've been traveling everywhere. Um, we went around Australia, we started going international. And then I said to my parents, can I do this forever? I just love it. And they
Mm,
said, you can do whatever you want to do. And so that led me after school getting into the travel industry and worked for an airline and then traveled with them, but then also sent a lot of clients around the world. Um, and then there was a part of my career where I wasn't working in the travel industry, but I still wanted to travel cheaply because I had the benefits when I worked for the airline. And that's how the idea came about. Once you start traveling, you never lose the bug, I would say.
mhm.
It's quite addictive. And yeah, and so now, you know, sharing all my expertise and knowledge with people, I travel quite cheaply and I wanted to show everyone else how they could do it.
Okay, that's thank you for that summary there. That's amazing. And what was the very first place that you traveled to, if you can remember, as a kid?
As a kid, we went to a place called the Jenolan Caves. Um, so it's near the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, close to Sydney.
Hmm.
And it was
Mm-hmm.
just, as you would know, just like a normal cave with, the glowing, um, the dripping from the ceiling and the glowing water. And that was probably the first place I went to. That was sort of domestically within Australia. I think internationally, the first place we went to was New Zealand, and that was amazing. It was like, oh, we're not in
Yeah.
Australia anymore. But
Mm.
yeah,
Yep.
but it was just mind blowing as a child.
Yeah. And so as of today, what was the very last place internationally that you traveled to? And how long did you stay?
So I've only come back a few weeks ago from Hawaii. I was only there for about 3 days doing a bit of a shopping spree, trip as you
Okay.
do. But prior to that, probably about a month or two back, I went to French Polynesia. So traveled to Bora Bora, Tahiti,
Wow.
Papeete, and Moorea. That was absolutely
Mm.
beautiful.
Wow. I just had a friend of mine come back from Tahiti maybe 3 weeks ago. He was there for a month or a month and a half. But okay. Oh, interesting. So you've been traveling since you were a youngling, and obviously that played a major role into the industry that you went into and the fact that you continue to travel since then. But what um what do you see being the biggest obstacle that people have into traveling that were not brought up into where like traveling was not a common thing. And it doesn't have to be like, international travel, but just going to visit, a different state within your country. So people that whose family did not have that, right? So like and they're having this misconceptions about, oh, like traveling must be this, or you must have that in order to travel. Like, what are some of the misconceptions that you think people often have when it comes to traveling? People that don't typically travel.
I think a lot of misconceptions is that it's expensive. It can be expensive, but I think if you do your planning and research and know how to find the deals, it can actually be quite cheap. Um, I
Mm.
think another misconception is that you need to go to a travel agent. You don't need to go to a travel agent. It can be daunting at first when you organise your own travel, especially if you're going on a big trip somewhere. But once you know how to do it, it becomes quite easy. It's just really common. Like it's just, like cleaning your teeth. So the more trips you book, it becomes quite easy and you go, okay, now I've got to get a flight. Now I've got to get my accommodation. So yeah, I think it's probably a bit scary and unknown at the start, but once you do it successfully once, then you go, okay, I know what I'm doing now. Let's continue doing this because I can see where the money savings are. And yeah, I think that's maybe fear holds a lot of people back, I think. But I think the big misconception is that it's expensive.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. Can you touch on the differences in cultures? So maybe some people might have like the fear of, well, this is all I know. I don't really know if I want to, interact with an entirely different culture. The fear
Mm.
of the unknown, so to speak, right? Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it can be a bit scary not knowing about a place, but again, it goes back to your planning and your research. So, if I'm going traveling somewhere where I haven't been before, I would go researching a little bit about their culture, about the etiquette that's appropriate
Mm,
within that place. I'd also try and learn a few words if it's a foreign language and English isn't their first language. I think
mm,
the more that you embrace and learn about something, it's not that daunting then when you get there. If you just go in cold and you've done no research, then I think maybe you might run into problems. And you're going to go, well, actually, I'm like this in my own place. Why are they not, why are they
mm,
not
mm,
accepting me here? So I think again, it's around researching. So, you're going to go to somewhere, say like India, do a bit of research about it, do a bit of research about the culture, learn what is appropriate over there, what isn't appropriate. And I think that makes the journey a little bit easier for you. And also, too, it's better for your own education as a place, I think, too, by doing that.
That is absolutely true. The the world is one giant classroom. Um, wait, do you have a travel agency, or you simply help coach people on how to find good deals?
So I've got a full-time job, so this is sort of my side thing.
Okay.
But when people do come to me, I do give them tips. So I might have someone come to me and say, "Oh, I'm going to Paris. Can you give me some recommendations and suggestions?" So I do that on a small scale, but yeah, I don't do it fully. But yeah, look, who knows in the future what I may do around that. But yeah, absolutely. People come to me
Mm,
and say, you got any ideas? You got any good deals going here? So
mm,
yeah, I normally
yeah.
give out those sorts of suggestions.
Okay, well, let me put you on a hot seat then right away. And
Mm.
I'm more of a spontaneous traveler. I don't fall into the researching bucket, and it has come back and beat me in the butt, right? Because there are consequences for not doing your homework. But that's just how I've been traveling. It's hard to get that habit out of me, right? Of last minute planning.
Mm.
So to put you on a hot seat in about a week, we're leaving Honduras, going to Cancun, Mexico. At least that's the tentative plan right now. Walk me through how you would approach. Let's assume that we're not having a podcast here, and I'm someone that's now well seasoned into traveling. Um, Walk me through how you would approach me and try to help me navigate this whole transitions, let's travel between here and Mexico.
Okay, well, I'd ask you a few questions to say, okay, how long are you going to be there, Moses? What do you plan on doing while you're there? What's your budget? I'd find out all those questions to try and establish your base. So, you might only have two
Mm,
days there. And also, what are you wanting to achieve when you go there? So, what is it that you want to do? Do you want to relax by the pool? Do you want to do a bit of shopping? Do you want to do a bit of sightseeing? So, I'd be asking you those
mm,
questions just to get the lay of the land of what you're wanting to do. Um, then, if I haven't been there myself, I'd do the research for you and find out a little bit. Um, and then what I would say is let's get those flights booked. Let's get the accommodation booked as a bare minimum. A lot of, if you're, depending
Mm,
on, you're saying you're a spontaneous sort of person, maybe you want to do things when you get over there and sort of understand what's going on over there. But I'd recommend that you get the flight and at least the accommodation sorted out immediately. And then, doing a little bit more of a deep dive and sort of plan out, an itinerary for you, whether that's a 5-day itinerary or if you're going there, say you're going there for a month or 2 months.
mm,
Another thing that I would suggest is that you look at the actual cost of living over there. What is the normal day-to-day expenses going to cost you, especially if you're on a tight budget. So that's sort of the things that I would suggest. Um, what I would also offer you is probably some links that I've got where you can actually get some cheaper deals, um, depending on whether it's the flights or accommodation. But that's sort of
mm,
probably the conversation that I'd have with you,
mm-hmm.
um, and then give you any recommendations, through my network on places to stay, and the best way to get there. So that would be the conversation. Um, if you're coming to me, I'd try and do as much as I could for you, and then you're just
Yep.
like, here you go.
Mm.
Go click on this link and book your flights. Click on the link and book your
Okay.
accommodation. So that's
Yeah.
sort of what I do. But yeah, I've got a lot of resources that I draw from, that I
Mm,
share
mm,
with people as well through my blog, and also
mm.
books. So
Okay.
um, yeah, not everyone's got that access to that information. So it's good to share, I think anyway.
Right. Right. So you mentioned that one of the things that you would try to do almost right away is to book the tickets, right? So that's a good segue into, in your opinion, like what's one of the biggest mistakes that people make when buying plane tickets?
I think not doing enough research and just selecting the first thing that comes along and going, okay, well, this sounds like a good price, let's do it, and book it. I think when you're booking tickets, especially if you're doing it yourself online, you need to actually you think about when you're buying a product, Moses. Do you take the first thing that you see, or do you do that research and price match? So
Do
you've got to
research, yeah.
consider a flight the same way as a product. You might be in the market for a mobile phone. Okay, you might be an Apple user and you might just want Apple, but then you might consider other products. You've got to put travel in that bucket as well. So you've got to do some price matching. So, American Airlines might be offering you at this price, but have you thought about going on trip.com or Expedia to see if there's some other flights that are cheaper that will get you there
Mm,
with maybe a better schedule and a better price? So you've got to do that price matching. And I'm not saying do extensive price matching, but you've got to make sure that what you're booking is you're actually getting a good deal with. Um,
mm-hmm.
that's one thing that I always do to make sure that I'm getting that better deal. Also,
Yeah.
it depends on whether you've got a frequent flyer program. So you might have a loyalty program that you're
Mm,
building
mm,
points with. You've got to consider that too. So if your strategy is that you're building points so you then can use them later on, you've got to equate whether maybe you want to pay that little bit extra to get the points or whether you're happy to go really, really cheap. So it's these sort of decisions that you've got to make with the flights. But again, it's about your budget. You can
mm,
get
mm.
some really, really you can get some really, really cheap flights, that'll get you there. But again, it's what your decision around that is.
Yeah. Typically, one of the filters that I run through when deciding for a plane ticket, aside from the price, of course, it's how long is it gonna take me to get there, right? So
Mm,
sometimes the fare price can be, let's say, $100. It's hardly ever $100, but let's just say for easy math, it's a hundred
mm,
dollars. But it's going to take me 14 hours to get there. Where there's a direct flight for, let's say, $300, that's gonna take an hour and a half. So
mm,
so that's is it worth those $200? I don't know, but I typically end up leaning more towards the okay, I'm just gonna pay those two extra $200 extra, just to not spend, an extra 10 hours. But I don't know if that's the same filter that other people, think about when they're traveling. But I can see, like, if time saving is essential for me, then that's a filter that I look through. But what you're saying is that some people might like price. Of course, price is always number one, but they might have a relationship with an airline, right? And that relationship might be worth a lot more. So it might be in their best
Mm.
interest to, even though it might be a bit more expensive to buy the ticket with the airline, but they have a loyalty program, like you said. They earn points. That's an interesting insight that most people don't quite take into account. Um, Random question so far. Well, I guess that's not that random. How has the travel industry changed within the last 4 years since COVID?
Changed quite a bit. So I think we had it really good before the pandemic. I think
Mm-hmm.
obviously it shook up the industry quite a bit. And what's happened now, they're in recovery mode. I still think they're almost at the point where they've almost recovered, but obviously the airlines and the industry has lost a lot of money. They've lost billions of dollars. And I think they weren't prepared for what happened, the onslaught of people wanting to travel. And I don't think they were prepared for that operationally. So what's happened
Mm-hmm.
is, obviously those planes haven't been used. They weren't used for nearly 2.5 years. They had to re-wake those planes up and get themselves back operationally from that time when we weren't travelling. But what's
Yeah.
also resulted in that is the prices have gone a bit sky high because there's so much
Mm,
demand. Because people are like, I haven't been anywhere for 2.5 years. I now want to go
mm.
here, here, and here.
Yeah.
And
Right.
everyone's had the same idea. So it's been really good for the airlines. I think because of the demand, the prices have been up. I think it's starting to
Mm,
settle down now a little bit,
yeah.
and people are getting that out of their system. I suppose you could call it Moses revenge travel. People are taking revenge on the pandemic. Um, I
Yeah.
know I've been taking revenge on it as well. And also, so people are getting more back to the stable way they were beforehand, but it's taken a while to get to that point.
Mm,
I think now there's a lot more specials happening, which I think is good for the customer. But
mm.
they weren't around about a year ago because everyone was just like, I've got to go here, I've got to go here. And
Right.
there was obviously more demand than they could fulfill in plane seats. So I think it had well, it definitely had an effect on the travel industry, but I think we're getting back to the new normal, I think now.
Do you have a travel bucket list?
Oh, absolutely. You think about a toilet roll and how much paper it's got on that. My list would be probably as long as that.
Wow, that's a lot. And are languages in that list?
Yeah, yes. Well, I mean, I speak some languages. I speak a bit of Italian, French, and I understand a bit of Spanish. But yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I think when I travel, I make it part of my research that I try and learn some of the language. And if I have time, extra time ahead of time, I will try and learn a bit more. So yeah, absolutely. One day I think I want to go somewhere and go to a language school and actually learn a language and have that part of my trip. I think you can do that in
Mm,
Europe, actually, in quite a few countries. So, yeah, later on, I'll definitely want to do that when maybe when I'm retired, when I've got a bit more time up my sleeve, um,
yeah.
do that. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really important part of your travel. Not everyone has got time for that or, plans for that, but I think it makes it a bit more of a better experience for you when you're traveling to a country. I think people embrace you more when you make an attempt to learn their language. They have a bit of a chuckle at you when you maybe have your accent and say maybe the words wrong, but I think they really appreciate the fact that you've tried to communicate with them in their own language.
That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true.
Mm,
I can attest to that. I'm in Central America right now, and I happen to speak Spanish, which is just it's amazing. It's amazing that you can that I can have access to such a large population around the world
mm,
that I can connect with, and just the Spanish that I speak, it comes from the Portuguese that I speak, and so
mm.
as you mentioned, you can get things wrong left and right as you're trying to speak the language, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. There's the effort there.
Mm.
They notice that there's something there, and you're trying to connect on a deeper level. You're trying to speak the very language that the other person also speaks. So that leads me to the next question of the misconception of, well, I don't really speak this language. I don't speak that language. I would love to go to this country, but I'm not gonna be able to understand anybody. And then they're like, so
Mm.
how do you break down those mental barriers of, okay, yes, you don't speak the language. Yes, it would be good if you did, but you can still travel there. You can still enjoy the culture. You can still learn from that culture, from that place so much, even if you don't speak the language. How do you go about breaking that barrier and allowing someone to travel somewhere that they've never been to, they don't know the culture, and they don't know the language?
I would say to them, we're all the same, really, if you come down to it. We might look different, we might sound different, but we're all humans and have the same sort of qualities. So I'd say, no matter where we travel to, there's going to be friendly people there. What I would say is don't be scared, be brave. Travel is
Mm,
a fantastic opportunity to find out about the new, to be educated about the world. There's so much out there that you don't know, that other people don't know about, say your culture. And it's a really
mm,
good exchange. And I would say, do your research. Yes, you might not speak the language, but you can use body language. If you don't know the language, people understand body language no matter where you go.
right,
You know,
right.
I was somewhere and I had a headache and I went, they
Mm,
understood
mm,
what I was talking about. I needed headache
yeah,
tablets. You know what I mean? Like it was,
yeah,
you can use your body
yeah.
language and people understand that universally through the world. I think, you won't fully understand a culture until you actually immerse yourself in it. And
Mm,
what you
mm,
were maybe scared about, you'll go, why was I worried about this? It's actually not a
mhm,
problem. So I think
right.
it again goes down to taking an interest in that country, learning the basics, learning about the culture and maybe the etiquette. And I think by doing that, it's going to make you not worry so much about going. But I would say be brave and just do it.
Yeah, be brave, just do it, and probably try to get rid of the fear of the unknown, which is
Mm.
really difficult, but which is when you're afraid of something that you don't even know, you become paralyzed because you don't know where to
Mm.
start. Right, so you end up not even taking the smallest possible step that can move you forward. So that's an interesting point that you made there. You mentioned earlier that price shopping on airline tickets is one of the things that one of the biggest mistakes that people fail to do, right? One of the things that people fail to do is shopping around for prices. So what are some resources, right? So I use Google Flights, for example, and then Skyscanner. But what are some of the other resources that people can use to cross compare plane tickets?
So I think trip.com is a really good one. Um,
Mm,
there's just so many. There's so many out there. What I would do is Google um, flight um, platforms or flight websites, and they all come up. I was just going to say they could come onto my website because I've got quite a few blog articles about. I think I've got quite a few blog articles about the cheapest places to go. Um,
mm,
and the best platforms to use. But I would go Expedia, TripAdvisor,
okay.
Trip.com. There's even one that I use. I can't recall them at the moment, but
Yep.
there's quite a number that I use. Also, the airline websites as well. depending on the
Mm-hmm.
airline that you're traveling with, go to that. Expedia is really excellent as well. Skyscanner, absolutely. It's a fabulous one. But yeah, there's so many out there that you could use. I think if you play around with the ones that work for you and then go back to them is probably the best suggestion I would give.
And what about for staying, for hotels and Airbnbs and such? Are there like how do you is it the same with airplanes? Like do you have like multiple websites that you compare to?
Booking.com's a really good one. I use that quite often. Um, Expedia is also a good one. I've got an account with them, and what happens is you earn points. So obviously
Mm,
you want to earn points, so it takes off the cost when you use it. But Expedia is a
right.
really good one. You can get flights, accommodation, touring, transport, everything. So that's a really good one that I use. Booking.com. There's just so many actually. In Australia, we use
Mm,
whatif.com. I don't know whether you've got that over there. But yeah, there's so many. But depending on what you're doing. So if you're doing an Airbnb, you might be best going to airbnb.com or,
okay.
depending on the hotel chain, sometimes it's good to go on the actual hotel chain that you're staying with because they may give you a cheaper deal going direct with them. But again, it depends on what you're after. But yeah, any of those are really good. Those sort of one-stop shops are good. I think TripAdvisor is really good. It gives you reviews, but it also can do that too. So they'd be probably my go-to. But yeah, booking.com's a fabulous one. It's got hundreds of thousands, whether it's Airbnbs, hostels, you name it, it's all in one. So it's a really
Mm,
good
mm.
resource.
Yeah, I've used a few of those myself. Um, Earlier you were mentioning that your background with traveling started when you were young, and so that kind of leads me to think about like the people that they've never traveled, right? Because there's actually a lot of people that have never traveled, and they're waiting for that one day, right? When the kids are grown up, or when they retire, or when the job is no longer as difficult. Fill in the blank, right? They're waiting for that one day when they can actually travel. There is merit to that. I mean, to each their own, of course, but I would suggest to not wait for that one day. Do it now and later as well. So what do you say? What do you say to people that have that just traveling is for when you're retired? You don't really do that when you're young. You gotta wait until you've saved up enough money so that you can travel somewhere in the tropical island and drink some margaritas. What do you say to that?
I'll say the future is not set. So we don't know what's going to happen when we're old and retired. Will we be in good health? We might not be.
Right,
And so
right.
that's a lost opportunity to travel. We would hope that when we retire and we're older, that we're in good health, but nothing's a given, right, in life. I think, yes, you've got a lot of commitments, you might be working, but if it's something that you really dream about doing, don't put it off. Set that money aside each payday to save up for that trip. I would say once you've started to travel, you'll understand what everyone else is talking about and you'll go, I love this and I want to do more of it. So I think it's whatever the things that you really hold dear. So if it's a dream to travel, then don't wait, in my opinion, because you don't know what's in the future. And I would not hate, but I would not like to be older and go, I regret not traveling.
Mm, mm,
I regret in
absolutely.
my life that I never traveled or that I didn't travel more. Um, so yeah, for me, it's about don't let anything stop you. If you feel strongly enough that you want to travel, then do it. There's always a way to do that. If the finances are an issue, save that little bit of extra money each week, set yourself a goal, and then go on your trip. But yeah, you don't want to get to the end of your life and go, I regret that I didn't travel, because
Mm,
there's nothing you can do about it then, you know. I
right.
think some of us are really lucky that we've done it from an early age. And I'm so blessed that that happened because it's now become my life. But that's not, that's not the opportunities that everyone's had. But what I would
Right,
say, if you
right.
want to travel, don't wait, do it now because you just don't know what the future holds.
Mm, mm. You don't know what the future holds. Linda King, Zoom is telling me that it's going to stop recording in a minute because it's a free plan. So unfortunately, we have to end the podcast here, but I'm loving this conversation. And any final thoughts for the audience here today?
Yeah, final thoughts. I reckon live your life to the fullest. So do what you love, whether that be traveling or otherwise. Look, as I said, life's short. Be happy and just enjoy yourself. Don't have regrets. And there's a wonderful world out there waiting for you to visit it. And I would say get on that plane and go in and start your adventure.
Mhm. Go on and start the adventure. And if people want to follow you or learn a little bit more about you, where can they find the information?
So I think go to my website, thesmarttravelista.com. All my resources are there, the blog about the books and also other resources. You can find me on most social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, X, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and I've
Mm.
also got a YouTube channel. But look, reach out to me. I'm always happy for people to ask questions. Love having a chat. I think the travel community is a wonderful community. And yeah, jump in and let's talk.
Linda King, thank you so much for stopping in. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Moses.
It's just, yeah, yeah, yeah.